Communist Central proudly presents the Afterlife Roast of Steve Jobs. Our presenters tonight will be some of the Afterlife's greatest theorists, Karl Marx, Max Weber, and Emil Durkheim. We have a great show for you tonight. Let's get things started off with the writer of the Communist Manifesto and Das Kapital. This man has influenced labor unions and political parties worldwide. Please welcome to the stage, Karl Marx.
Oh my, they let Jobs into heaven. Myself, I thought it was going to be just a little more south, but whatever. Yes, that's good. By the way, I heard that in June Elistad's study class, some nerd got a 38 on the third exam. Hey Steve, I just want to let you know that if I had to create the perfect private property owner / bourgeoisie candidate, you would be my Kaiser Wilhelm. I thought that the owners of the local mill were slave drivers, but Jobs puts them all to shame. You want to talk about forced division of labor? You couldn't even apply at Apple without understanding that you were the lesser lower class and that the only bourgeoisie in the entire world is Steve Jobs. Now, when class consciousness is realized, it is when the lower worker class realizes that they are alienated and treated poorly by the bourgeoisie. This is not a problem with Jobs, because when you work for Apple, you're reminded on the daily basis that you are lesser and that Steve Jobs is God. That's good. People today say that nerds are like robots, whatever it is that they are. If that is the case, then it makes sense that the biggest nerd in all the world would create something that would take away from our creativity and species being and make something just like him. Yeah. I will give you this, Steve. If one loses their class consciousness or their species being, all you have to do is ask the Siri, and she will find it for you. Private property is when the worker is alienated from their humanity. This is a simple realization with Jobs, because at Apple and Macintosh, it is a requirement to know that you are not human. You are little worker bees, and that the queen bee is Steve Jobs. A commodity fetish is a central concept in one of my theories. It is when secondary needs become primary needs in terms of capitalism. One moment. Jobs, you took this way too seriously. This guy would fire people for even thinking about doing anything that would be taking a break from making more money. I will leave you with this. Ideology is a system of ideas blinding us to the truth of economic relations. Hello, iOS sein.
Stay tuned as Communist Central continues its roast of Steve Jobs. Still to come, Max Weber, Emil Durkheim, and later we'll hear from the man himself, Steve Jobs. But first, a short commercial break.
Hear you say life's taking you nowhere. Angel, come up, baby. Look at that sky, life's begun. Nights are warm and the days are young.
Hey, get up!
Huh?
Hey, get out of here! Get off my lawn!
Mr. Bourgeoisie!
Get off my lawn!
But I don't have access to the means of production, Mr. Bourgeoisie!
Get a job!
I have a job! You better pay bachelor's.
They want a master's now.
Ah, it's in sociology.
Do you have problems with those pesky proletariats? Can you not enjoy your nice house because they're trying to sleep out of the cold wind? Well, we have a solution for you. For only 3 easy payments of $9.95, the proletariat beater can be yours. 60% of the time, it works every time. Order yours now by calling 406-243-5353. Our operators are waiting to take your call.
But what if they start to develop class consciousness?
There is no false consciousness, only unconsciousness. Thanks to the proletariat beater, I no longer have poor people on my lawn. Isn't that right, Ronald?
Please welcome to the stage another German sociologist whose ideas influence social theory, social research, and the entire discipline of sociology. The author of the essay The Protestant Ethic and the Spirit of Capitalism, Max Weber.
Thank you very much for inviting me here today. We are gathered here to honor a modern genius and a technological philanthropist, Steve Jobs. But hey, Steve, you were either a strong believer in predisposition or weren't too much into the Protestant way. Because with all the revenue you created with Apple, I still don't think you created an app to get you into heaven. Okay, Steve, I'm just glad I didn't see as a day where a cell phone entrepreneur is considered to have the same charismatic authority as a wonderful leader like Martin Luther King. With the iPhone, there is no mystery or religion anymore. Kids today just find the truth about Santa Claus just by pressing the home button and asking Siri. Where's the value in that? Speaking of value, and rational value at that, don't get too excited when I say organic Durkheim, but I bet Max is over there drinking organic tea, but according to him, proper tea is criminal and the basis of alienation. But we don't even have to worry about you getting into heaven, since you never could get past gates. But seriously, how do you plan to get past the iron cage? With the iPhone, people don't even have time to live their lives and communicate. They're too busy playing the Candy Crush. In conclusion, Steve, I don't think adding an S to the end of a product makes it any better. Talk about your historical ideal type. Thank you very much. You are truly a face of a generation, and you set the bar high for nerds, and you are the guiding hand to hipsters alike. Danke.
When we return, we'll hear from our final sociologist roaster of the night, Emil Durkheim. We will also get the chance to hear from our honored guest himself, Steve Jobs. Before the iPhone 60, people don't know how they live their day-to-day life. Sure, those previous phones had things like GPS, music, movies, HD screens, and more than enough memory. But with commodity fetish being what it is these days, bigger is always better. Wow, look at the size of that screen. No longer should you stress about Marx's theories on capitalism. With this new 20-inch HD touchscreen, you can lull yourself into a perfect sense of false consciousness and keep being class in itself rather than a class for itself. Social change can wait. You have calls, texts, chats, tweets, Instagram, Pinterest, and Facebook to keep up with, and a huge screen to play Candy Crush on. iPhone 60, coming out Christmas of 2015. Better get in line today. Welcome back to the Afterlife Roast of Steve Jobs. Our final roaster of the evening is a French sociologist, social psychologist, and philosopher. When you think of ending it all by suicide, egoistic, altruistic, anomic, or fatalistic, the next thought that comes to mind should be the name Emil Durkheim. Please welcome to the stage, Emil Durkheim.
Good evening, everybody. It is nice to see Karl Marx here this evening. I assume Friedrich Engels paid for your dinner tonight. You don't usually find Karl at a gathering that doesn't involve a revolution. Tell me, Karl, how did that revolution work out for you again? Stupid German. And speaking of stupid German, I am joined on stage tonight by Max Weber. Max, it must be awkward being here with Steve Jobs, knowing that you was the one who led the charge to get iPhone banned from heaven until they came up with a pay-as-you-go plan. Of course, that doesn't stop you from reinforcing your theory of rational capitalism by standing in line every time a new iPhone comes out. Stupid German. Well, Steve Jobs has joined us here in the ranks of heaven, which must be quite a shock for him. This is the one place where he can't actually call himself God. Stupid American. The Catholic Church is furious with Steve because every time they tell their followers to open their Bible, they pour out the iPhone user manual. But seriously, Steve, unlike the music industry producer, I am so delighted for your success with iTunes. Not as delighted as Marx, who enjoys seeing artists list their songs individually. Try owning the means of production for only $1.29, Jay-Z. But why add to the zeitgeist, Steve, when you can add to the world's sense of anomie? Or better yet, you can rest in peace knowing the world has more access to Britney Spears than ever before. Stupid American. I joke, of course, because I'm so very proud of the work you did while you were alive, Steve. I think everyone knows that in addition to being considered the father of sociology, I am also the founder of the functional perspective. That is why I am so happy that Steve has created this wonderful device that facilitates communication, establishment of norms, and provides a much-needed mutual context that can support social order. I only wish we had the iPhone when the Prussians invaded. Stupid Germans. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Steve, and have a good evening.
Finally, the man you've all been waiting to hear from. He's a demanding perfectionist. He propelled his businesses and products to the forefront of the technology industry. He taught the world that we need to think different. And by different, I assume he meant think about joining the cult of the iPhone. He's been called a design perfectionist, a master of innovation, and the father of the digital revolution. Please join us in welcoming our guest of honor and one of the richest men to pull off blue jeans and a black turtleneck combo, Mr. Steve Jobs.
First off, I'd like to say it's really nice to be in heaven. Durkheim, you don't know how hard it was to get past gates. I mean, this is a real life accomplishment for me. I'm pretty happy to at least get past the gates once. I'd say the best thing of all, though, about heaven is they sell something other than turtlenecks. For the longest time of my life, all I could find at the store was black turtlenecks. But finally, I can actually get a suit, a polo. Oh, the turtlenecks. They lasted so long. Oh, Marx. I think it's safe to say that even if religion was the opiate of the masses, you were not getting high on God. The only means of production that I used to get rich was my mind. You didn't even have access to the capitalist system. Maybe that's why you hated it so much. You looked at it through the eyes of your friend. By the way, did he grab your dinner tab? I'm quite curious on that. As for commodity fetish, the only part of my phone that involves fetish is the sort of detail you can see on a 5-inch HD screen. Durkheim, religion does indeed glue society together. But you are wrong thinking that the cult of the individual would take over. Nope, it's the cult of the iPhone. People line up to worship every phone that I release. Sure, the iPhone 6 might better be called the U phone the way that it bends. I mean, sure, they sell textbooks to straighten them back out after you leave them in your pocket for the day. But that's irrelevant. People still line up to worship them. It's a totem. I mean, stomp on someone's iPhone and see what happens. You stomp on June's iPhone, and it's going to be worse than stomping on a veteran's grave. I promise you that. You aren't even the theorist that people think of when they think of classical theory. I mean, Marx is the famous one. When everybody signed up for June's class, they went to see Marx, they went to see Weber. Who cared about Durkheim? Who is he? You aren't even famous. Most people can't even decide if you were happy or sad. At least everyone knows that Marx was a pessimist who gave up on life and society and thought that the world would crash and burn and everything would be horrible. But that is unless people get class consciousness. Oh, what a small chance that is, with the false consciousness. And yes, the iPhone does help with that, Marx. And then also everyone knows that Weber has to be a raging alcoholic. I mean, who can be that depressed? All throughout his life, sadness and nothing but that. I mean, talk about a charismatic leader. I'm famous. You say Steve Jobs and people know exactly who you're talking about. You say Durkheim and people cry. Because after failing classical theory because of that Durkheim test, there's a reason to. And Weber. Oh, Weber. Depressing doesn't even begin to describe you. I mean, the iron cage of bureaucracy. Sure, you might sell your firstborn child, getting customer support from the bureaucracy called Apple. But some people would do that regardless. And you could always get a dumb phone, and then you wouldn't even know what tech support is. Who bought a Nokia and said this thing broke? It's never happened. Now the iPhone, you better have Apple on your speed dial, because boy does that thing break. I guess that's your idea of free will and play, though. The individual does indeed have a choice. I just influenced a slight bit with advertising, just a little bit of pressure from your peers. Whip out an iPhone 1 and see what happens. People will make more fun of you than the guy that still has a flip phone. Anyways, the evolution of witchcraft to religion is pretty evident with the iPhone 2. Used to be you set a smoke signal and hope your mom knows you're going to be home for dinner. Now, you're a text away. You can even ask Siri how mad your mom is going to be when you're late for dinner because you had to finish a level of Candy Crush in June's class. Nate. Talk about the development of God due to free time. And in free time, that'd be like somebody using their laptop or phone during this presentation. And we all know how that would end. A slow, painful death and a trip down south where the prophet of God, June Elstad, would send you.
Yo, listen up, here's the story about a little guy that lives in a blue world. And all day and all night and everything he sees is just blue. Like him,